I'm not a big fan of ranking seasons of the shows I like, mostly because the parameters for what works and what doesn't vary widely by season. Of course, some objectively gel better than others as a whole composition, but I'm more in the camp of I like how this season does X, and this season really dropped the ball on Y, rather than judge them against each other with some ultimate conclusion about their quality. But these kind of debates persist, and one trend that's popped up repeatedly is a sort of distaste for Buffy Season 6. There's a few reasons for it, but Season 6 of Buffy is pretty polarizing among fans, and understandably so. It fluctuates wildly between its highs and bizarre lows. The big bads are underwhelming and then just gross. The central relationships are a mess. And it all builds up to maybe the most controversial episode on the show, Seeing Red. Overall, watching it isn't an experience most of us would describe as pleasant. I personally rarely rewatch it for fun, if at all. At times, it almost doesn't feel like Buffy. And to that I'd say exactly. I think that's the point. Buffy is a character-driven saga. Season 5 represented the peak build-up of these characters that we'd spent years with. So Season 6 was about breaking them down, and by consequence, the show with it. Most of the Buffy finales to this point, minus Restless, could have felt like series finales, but the ending of Season 5 feels uniquely so to me. It feels final. And I've even read more than one take saying that the show should have ended there. And I wish I agreed. The reasons I have for wishing it are completely emotional and completely personal. When I first watched the show and found myself in a post-Season 6 recovery, it took me 3 months to move on and watch 7. Granted, I was 16. Season 5 has so much of what makes Buffy memorable to me. Like I said, I'm always hesitant to call any season a favorite, but Season 5, to me, has always felt like the most complete incarnation of the show. The characters have come into their own, the relationships have matured and flourished, the arc is tight, well-paced, the themes all click, and it ends with devastating drama in perfect Buffy form. It all just works. Season 5 ends with Buffy's death, but everything else seems to be in relative order. Tara is healed, Xander and Anya are engaged, there's things to look forward to on the horizon. Most of all, they're safe, and together. Nothing is perfect, to be sure, in Buffy nothing ever is, but Buffy's send-off feels like the heroic ending she was always supposed to get. It's the way I'd like to leave it. Season 5 boldly kills the title of the show. Buffy's journey is over, as is ours with her. We can mourn her, we can miss her, but she's found peace. It's done. The show's about Buffy, so when it brings her back, it's effectively resurrected itself. It's interesting to look at Season 5 and 6 paired together. Season 5 has the team at their most archetypically heroic. They fight as a team, the big bad is a god. There's even knights. It's so good, Season 5 almost feels safe. And yes, I say this with full knowledge of every other event in the season, but the main difference is the problems here are largely external, something they can fight from the outside. But Season 6 feels uneasy. The outside threats don't feel as serious, sometimes they're laughable. Everything dark that threatens to pull them apart is internal. The team playing at roles they no longer know how to fill. When Buffy comes back wrong, her friends who previously orbited around her lack the compass I think they were expecting. There's perhaps nothing more powerful than the act of reassembling yourself. If we are the sum of choices woven into a story we tell ourselves, seeing that story fall apart and figuring out where to go next. Because things fall apart. They fall apart so hard.
Can't ever put them back the way they were.
What's especially significant in Season 6 is how it addresses this idea of narratives. The narrative of Buffy the show, of course, but also the narrative of the self. We have this story about who we are. I'm in love. I'm a helper. I'm the hero. And these aren't wrong necessarily, it's just that they can be unreliable. And I'd say the show makes its biggest statement on the reliability of narratives when it tears the Buffy bot apart. In its final scene, the Buffy bot is even dressed very much like Buffy herself was in The Gift. The Buffy she was before she died, that Buffy quipping before beating up a hell god with not Mjolnir, is gone. It's ripped apart before her eyes. Buffy is not the action hero. The Scoobies are not her quirky sidekicks anymore. Season 6 strips back the action and heroics of the story we knew, leaving mostly just people. It takes these people we know, trust, and love, and shows them to us at their lowest points. And these come about not because of external circumstances, for the most part, but just because of the people they are. Their very complexity, the reason we love them so much, is the destructive impetus of the season, and the result is a season that feels more slice of life than any other. So much emphasis in Season 6 is put on the most rote bits of adult life. The team's worst internal crises are juxtaposed with an almost oversaturation of the mundane. The days creep, slow and too bright, brimming with food and bills and not enough high-stakes fantasy villains to distract them. So the focus isn't the perfunctory big bad, but human darkness itself. As weary as I am of unnecessarily gritty realism that replaces actual satisfying catharsis, Buffy has always been a show about difficult realities, and Season 6 is not just a pointless exercise in edginess. As Passion of the Nerd mentions in many of his videos, in Buffy, like in life, there is no final achievement to unlock, where everything is good and done. We may get perfect moments, but life goes on. But it's not all bleak. There's something significant for us here. And I think that's empathy. If we can accept that these people we know so intimately, like family, can crash and burn like this, then we accept the same in ourselves. I think that's what compassion is, ultimately, recognizing our own human frailty in the mistakes of another. We grow most when we deliberately look inward, and the bummer about this is we're usually forced to be introspective when something has already gone terribly wrong. But if our flaws never blew up in our face, we'd never have to confront them. Like I said, I don't often watch Season 6 for fun or at all, and that's on me. When I do, I can just feel the upcoming storm on the horizon, and a lot of it has to do with Willow and Tara. I found Buffy at 15, and Willow and Tara were so special to me at a very young, critical juncture in my life. Tara's death was one of those things that just became a part of me. To this day, I still have very visceral responses to the events at the end of the season. It's a wound that is very real and very personal, and I understand that my misgivings about rewatches are grounded in that wound, and I'm okay with that. Which leads me to the one addendum I'll make to my defense of Season 6's necessity. Tara's death is the one piece of the Season 6 tragedy that didn't actually add anything. It was a stepping stone for another character's arc, but it didn't actually have anything new to say, except maybe something about the chaotic unpredictability of death. But that was already covered. A couple times. It brings Tara's character and her and Willow's relationship, two interesting things with potential, to a complete stop. Without falling into gratuitous torture porn, watching a character suffer and struggle will to me always be more interesting than watching them die. A dead character has no more story to tell, no more arcs, no more growth. And Tara's character, already underutilized in the show, deserved much, much more. But Tara's fridging aside, Season 6 gives us Willow's descent into darkness, one of the most compelling arcs in the show, and while the metaphor for it was less than elegant, it was one of the most well set up character payoffs we ever got to see. And that's what I'd say Season 6 is, ultimately. Payoff. To everything we've seen thus far. To the foreshadowing in Restless and Fear itself.
Take it off.
No, I need it.
Do you mind? I'm talking to my demon.
What the hell is wrong with you? Ashamed of us? Your mother's crying her guts out.
I am destruction. Absolute. Alone.
The things we do to avoid fears instead of confronting them, those become Season 6. As made explicit in Restless, the Scoobies symbolize the metaphorical parts of Buffy, her heart, her mind, and her spirit. Obviously, the Scoobies are individuals in their own right with their own agency, but their metaphorical relationship to her represents the way they help her process the world. So, if this is the emotional metaphor of the show, Xander cannot be Buffy's heart when his own is torn over a decision he doesn't want to make, and then burdened by extreme guilt and self-doubt. Willow can't be Buffy's spirit if she's consumed with her need for control and careening off a cliff of emotional addiction. So, where their strength was at its peak together, and the show most warm and fun to watch, here they fall apart. This unraveling is such a necessary addition that Season 6 brings to the show. That's what being human is. It's resilience and hope, but it's also neuroticism and paranoia, and will I ever be good enough, and I don't want to feel, and I hate myself. And these feelings can provoke in us the range of choices we take to cope, to numb, or to feel in control. And the idea of choice has always been part of the show's philosophical backbone, at once the most damning and redeeming thing about us, that whatever we might feel, we can always choose something. So to this end, it's significant that almost every twist in the spiral of the season is the result of choices. Well, if we go back to the beginning, it's about one. The choice to bring Buffy back, to override her last decision in this world. So if our choices can devastate our lives and those of others like this, then our choices are also the only path to healing. And that path doesn't have to feel good every step of the way, that's the thing. It probably won't.
The pain that you feel, you only can heal by living. You have to go on living.
However you feel about Spike, his line in Once More with Feeling is one of the most significant in the series, and is all that matters is what we do levels of yelling the Buffyverse thesis in your face. I think about this line all the time. That sometimes the path forward is painful, drudging, but that's all life really is. Healing isn't always inspirational or poetic. Sometimes it's just forward. We'll all have our season 6s at some point. The times in our lives when everything sort of collides in that cosmic way that makes you think someone must have it out for you. Or even worse, you conclude that this is all your fault, you've ruined everything, so you deserve to be miserable. From there, self-hatred and self-pity become our best friends. Self-hatred is those wheels spinning, unwilling to let us go, instead trapping us in an addicting cycle of guilt that keeps us miserable and immobile. By showing us the Scoobies at their worst, Season 6 forces us to ask, can we understand them? After all we've seen. By showing us our heroes like this, the show could start to feel cynical, but mostly, I just find it kind, in a way. If we all have the potential to become our Season 6 selves, what does this mean? As usual, the choice is up to us. Does this validate bitter ideas of an uncaring world where everyone can hurt and disappoint us? Where we can disappoint ourselves? Or does it mean we can understand each other a bit better? That if the range of lukewarm to scalding hot mess is a potential part of all of us, we're not alone in that. And that even at our worst, we can be understood. And maybe that's why I like Season 6 so much. These characters look most like us, conflicted and lost and hopeful, like us. Now, I don't think this means we should fetishize suffering or glorify our own mistakes because that's just how you grow. It's just that this also happens, and that's okay. To be human is to be a series of contradictions. We're all capable of great compassion and great selfishness. We can give in to destructive impulses, but we can also dig ourselves out. Where we are doesn't define the possibilities of where we can end up. So, I think the show is asking us just to understand. And if we can do it for them, maybe we can do it for ourselves too.